Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of MC Commute. My name's Zack, and I'm going to ride to the office. This particular commute is brought to you in part by Sena Bluetooth, makers of the Momentum helmet with integrated Sena technology for an unprecedented audio experience. Sena is a supporter of MC Commute, so if you're into Bluetooth technology, please do support Sena right back. On today's ride, I'm kind of excited about this one because this is a bike that was requested again and again and again by MC Commute viewers. That is a Honda CBR650F. It is not a CBR600RR. It is not a CBR500. So what is it and what does it feel like? We're gonna find out on today's ride, and it's gonna start right now. Let's do it. Okay. Yeah, so just a quick little rundown. You get a steel frame. Sort of looks, it has a sort of aluminum twin spar kind of look, right? Which is probably what they were going for, but it's steel. You got two 320 millimeter rotors, which we will talk about faux show. What else you got going on back here? Have this underslung exhaust. This is kind of interesting, I think. This is basically a touring foot peg, right? Big, thick, beefy thing with rubber on top. We're going to talk about that too. No such luck for the passenger. They just get a cast aluminum mamma jamma. Anyway, yeah. Pretty handsome bike, I think, in this red, black, white. I forget what it's called. I think it's called Millennium Red or something. It's the only color option. And there you have it. Boom, boom. But yeah, it's a good looking bike, I think. A pretty cool looking headlight in there. Yeah. Okay. Let's do it already, right? Yep. Alright, so your CBR650 basics. You got 649cc inline 4, very typical inline 4 conventional firing order, 4 valves per cylinder, fuel injection, blah blah blah. So yeah, it's an engine designed just for this place in Honda's lineup and in the market, between the sort of Ninja 400, CBR 500 level of sport bike, sort of entry level, and the very serious kind of R6 and CBR 600RR level of sport bikes, which are very popular but quite a bit more expensive and performance oriented. So yeah, the CBR650F here does not, in my opinion, suffer from being too performance oriented. It's pretty mellow, and it likes doing this kind of thing right here pretty well, just cruising right along at 45 miles an hour. It's much more comfortable than a 600RR, thank goodness. There's pretty good leg room. The foot pegs are not quite as high. The seat height, I believe, is 31.9 inches, something like that. So not crazy low, but also pretty approachable. And the handlebar situation, handlebars, are the clip-ons are a little bit more reasonably placed. They're much more upright. And so what you get is like a very reasonable kind of sport touring position, sort of a VFR 800 or Ninja 1000 or Ducati Super Sport kind of riding position. And it's pretty pleasant. People always ask about height. You know, I'm really short, will this bike work for me? I'm really tall, will this bike work for me? I think this is one of those bikes that work for just about anyone, as long as you can feel comfortable at a stoplight with a 32-inch seat. I think you'll be totally fine. I bet. I'm 6'2". I bet it would work for someone up to, I don't know, 6'5" or something like that. One thing I will say about approachability is the weight, which 472 pounds, like I mentioned, is pretty hefty for this class of bike. I think it's worth mentioning that other motorcycles in the class are much, much lighter. I'm thinking, of course, of that, oh god, squirrel, don't do it. Oh my god, that's suicidal, man. Ugh, making me nervous. Anyway, I'm thinking especially of Yamaha's MT-07, which I think the last time we weighed that thing, granted it only holds 3.7 gallons of gas if memory serves, was 408 pounds maybe, or 410, something like that. I remember at one point it was 400 on the nose, I think, when it was new, back when it was the FZ07. Anywho, that bike, you know, I mean, 65 pounds lighter, something like that, is no joke. That's a big deal. So that's an unfortunate thing that the CBR650F has to deal with. When it comes time to stop, as we're doing right now, luckily the brakes are quite good. Those 320 millimeter rotors that I pointed out, the calipers are nothing special. They're just sort of sliding pin calipers. In fact, I'm pretty sure they're the same ones basically that you get on a CB500X or an NC700, that kind of thing. Except in this case, there are 2 calipers and 2 rotors, which makes a big difference. And I'm glad Honda did that. Here we go, we can test those brakes one more time. They're good, they're really good. There's not a ton of feel, they don't feel performance oriented, but they do work really nicely. They do the trick. There's plenty of power, which is confidence inspiring. All right, let's spool this sucker up, see what we got here. Whoop, just touched the rev limiter. If you heard that, I think the rev limiter is at 11.5. But that little zing that we got there from the engine, I think is something that is worth talking about, because that's not something you get from a Yamaha MT-07 or a Ninja 650 or an SV650 or yeah, whatever else is in the class, because it's an inline 4 and you get that sort of I don't know, yeah, you get that kind of competition sound, because any bikes, sport bikes that race, right, are inline 4s, and when you hoss on this thing, it kind of makes that sound a little bit. Yeah, it's got a little scream to it. Okay, trunk's open, abort. Anyway, yeah, I think Honda deserves a little bit of credit for delivering in this class of motorcycle that sort of that inline 4 feel. I will now editorialize and say that I don't think the engine is as good as an SV650 or an MT-07. I just think an MT-07 engine's just spunkier, it's more fun. It's probably in part because the bike's lighter. But yeah, this doesn't really do anything for me personally. I would rather have a little twin with some more torque on the street. But a lot of people are after the sort of inline 4 sport bike thing, and if that's what you're after, then this bike delivers where other bikes do not. Okay, we got some time to look at this dash and who's it, so let's do that, shall we? Very simple. Speed, nice big digital speedo, and then this little sort of quasi-analog tack thing, which I think is pretty useful. And then clock, fuel gauge, and one set of data that you can cycle through by hitting this. So you got average fuel, stuff like that. Trip A 134.4. Yes, that clock is accurate. I'm late for work, but I'm not really late, though. I'm hanging out with you guys, talking about motorcycles. And that's like my job, is to talk about motorcycles. So I think it's pretty unfair to say that I'm not working right now. I mean, can we agree? Anyhow, back to the dash thing. People have complained that it's not up to date, and those people are probably right. It's pretty simplistic. It doesn't, I mean, I like the layout, honestly. The layout's not bad. I kind of like the asymmetry of like speed and tack on one side and some other information on the other side, but it just doesn't, I don't know. I'm surprised there's no gear position indicator, frankly, and I feel like a little bit more space of LCD screen to show what's going on might be helpful. But here we go. Yeah. Onto the freeway with CBR650F, and we are into 6th gear, and we're trying not to get blanked by that CRV and toward this little hornet's nest of traffic. So as I signal and I look at my mirrors and I move across traffic here, what I notice about the CBR650F is how much better it is than a CBR600RR at doing stuff like this. I'm more upright, it's easier to see, the mirrors are better. If I want to check over my shoulder, the riding position is easier to do that with. This is sort of why they created this bike, is being in this situation, because as proud as Honda engineers are, I'm sure, of the CBR600RR, they know it's not for doing this, whereas the CBR650F basically is. and they designed it to have extra torque. So there's a little roll-on power here as you go out into the carpool lane. Nice roll-on power, really good. And it's not the kind of power that is going to intimidate someone who's new to motorcycling, but it's plenty to get the job done. And you know, it's very Honda of them. They set out to do something and they hit the nail pretty much right on the head. I don't actually remember the torque number off the top of my head. I want to say it was 47, 44, something like that. Comparable in the class, but of course it occurs a little bit higher in the revs than the twins do. Horsepower number for this bike was 79 at 10,000 something RPM, which, yeah, so this sort of, you get a little bit of that inline 4 character. Alright, we're not quite going freeway speeds right now. Got a little bit of congestion, so we're going, you know, 50-55 here. But I will say that the CBR, I can speak from experience and tell you that the wind protection is not super comprehensive, but it is much better than an actual naked bike. Even at a couple inches over 6 feet, I get quite a bit of benefit from this little screen here. It takes the wind off my torso. My shoulders and arms are still out in the wind, but my helmet's in clean air, which means there's no buffeting, and it's a little bit more relaxing to ride on the freeway than a bike with no wind protection, in my opinion. Also, this is usually the part of the ride where we talk about the mirrors, and I gotta say, CBR650 mirrors pretty darn good. I think they suffer a little bit from the Ninja 400 problem of being far away from the rider. So I'm in my natural riding position here, and if I reach out to adjust the mirror, I can't even reach it. It's pretty far over there, which I think makes it a little bit hard to direct your line of sight in the reflection to the right spot. But they are dead smooth. You can identify cars from pretty far back. It's not all blurry and wacky, which is a really nice feature. And speaking of blurry and wacky, where those mirror vibes often come from is the engine, of course. And it's surprising that the mirrors are so clear, honestly, because the bike does vibrate a fair amount. Now I'm going 75 or so. I'm pulling 6,000 RPM. And there are quite a bit of tingly vibes in my hands. And the foot pegs also, even with those little rubber things that we saw when we first looked at the bike. So, you know, fighting vibes is another thing that's a little bit of a tricky thing on an inline 4. You're bound to get a little bit of fuzziness from the engine, so I think Honda did pretty well fighting it, but I would certainly rather be feeling a 270 crank twin from that MT-07 right about now. Okay, peeling into the off-ramp, downshift, third gear, bend it in. Yeah, feeling pretty good leaned over. Very, very measured. It will not do anything weird when you're leaned over on the side of the tire. It's a fun sport bike sort of feel without, you know, the actual sport bike capability. It doesn't change directions very quickly, and in part that's because of the weight, and in part that's because I think it's been tuned to be gentle. But yeah, definitely going from side to side is not very agile, but it's dead smooth and it likes leaning over just fine. There we go. It's fun. It's a fun engine. It's not my taste in engines, but it's good for what it is. It's fun. Neutral, nice and easy. I'll say that also, or on the topic of neutral, the transmission is very, very easy to use. I was just riding a big touring bike the other day. It was actually a BMW touring bike, and man, finding neutral was a bear. Every time I come to a stop, it was like my foot was dancing on the thing to try to get into neutral. We go from first to second, second to first. I like to think I'm at least competent in finding neutral after riding motorcycles for the better part of 30 years. The CBR, though, really direct. Anytime you're in first or second, it's just so easy to find neutral. All the shift action's really positive. It's not a particularly sporty gearbox, but it does talk to you and tell you what's going on, which is nice. I guess one thing we haven't talked much about is the seat. I don't think I mentioned that at all. I talked about riding position and comfort and stuff, but the seat's pretty good, I think. I haven't ridden this bike for more than maybe an hour at a time, so I don't feel like I'm in a great place to tell you if it's all day comfortable, but I find the shape to be good, and it's pretty reasonable to move around on. If you want to scoot back a little bit, you don't feel like you're crunching your groin on the tank. Okay, can we back it in? Second gear to first. Ooh, sort of. But you can't shut off ABS on this ABS model, so it doesn't really do that well. Maybe it'll wheelie though. Oh, there we go. Little wheelie out of the bike. That's pretty good. I haven't had a whole lot of luck pulling big wheelies on this thing, but there you go. You can do wheelies. Let's try backing it in one more time, shall we? Ooh, that was a little bit better. First time I just kind of dumped the clutch and the back wheel chattered. If you just fan it a little bit, you can get it to step out a little more gently. But again, that's not really the jam of this bike. Not really what it's for. All right, let's talk about price. It is $92.50, I believe, for this machine with ABS. I think it's $87.50 for non-ABS. And again, the colorway is the same. And that's another sort of hitch I have with this bike, is that that's kind of expensive, right? I'm gonna pull into a new parking spot now. New office, new parking spot. But yeah, that's kind of a problem, right? It's a little bit expensive for what it is, because you got MT-07 at you know, what is it, 7,700 or something like that. You know, this new office thing's not working out at all. Got traffic and stuff. So yeah, anyway, I just don't think that it's priced very competitively. Can we agree? It's like $1,000 or so more than a Ninja 650, than an MT-07, than an SV. And I don't know if it really delivers anything that those bikes don't. If you want the classic, you get the SV. Ninja 650 is quite a bit cheaper and realistically just as capable. And the MT-07 is a great deal and spunkier and way lighter. I don't know. It's hard to really see where the CBR650 fits to me, and I don't really think I would buy one. That being said, there's nothing wrong with it. It's a great motorcycle. I think it looks cool. I think the brakes are good. I think the transmission's good. I think it's comfortable. It carries a reasonable amount of fuel. It's a good bike. It's a great bike. I don't know. So if you like it, then love it and get one and have fun. Like I said, not really my cup of tea, but can't argue with results. There you go. That's what it sounds like when you spool it up. Okay, so we'll do a few questions, and then we'll call it a day here. Let's see here, Abdel. What is my opinion regarding cornering? It's the last 4-cylinder kind of commuter bike. The other ones are twins. I think we covered that. It's a little bit heavy, so it feels heavy. Is it worth the money over the other 650s on the market? No, not in my opinion. At this medium performance level, does the fairing and bars make sense? I think so. I mean, it's a look thing, right? You know, so that's a good question there from Andy Knuckles. But I mean, it's a matter of opinion. But I don't think it doesn't make sense, if that helps. Would you pick this over a Ninja ZX6R? Ugh. I don't make jeans. Good question. I mean, maybe. Probably not, though. I don't know, it is quite a bit cheaper, and if I was just going to commute, it's probably better at that than a ZX6, but I'd be tempted by a ZX6's performance, and I like going to track days. So, someone asked if it's a 3-cylinder. No, it is not. Let's see, someone asked if it's a legit sport bike. Not really. Can you comment on fuel economy? You know what? Yeah, I can. I got some numbers here. Let's run through them real quick. 05, 2.8. I can tell you we got 105 miles divided by 2.8 gallons, 37.5. So I think 35 or 40 is what you can expect for fuel economy. And that's all the time we have for questions. I think I'm going to let you guys get on with your day because I'm sure you got important things to do. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. See the links in the description of this video for a link to a little piece I wrote and a dyno chart. It'll show you the exact horsepower of the bike, and of course some more information on sponsors of the show. Thanks again for watching.